starts up right after that. Okay, now
Uh-huh.
we are live streaming. And wow, wow, wow. Um, or so it says, it's still saying it's setting up, but here we go. There we are. Now I'm just going to check real quick and see if we have sound in Gather. And I'm going to do that by making echoes.
Making echoes. Making echoes.
Yep, and echoes there are. So that means that we're here only to be truly helpful. We are here to represent Him who sent us. We do not have to worry about what to say or what to do, as He who sent us will direct us. We are content to be wherever He wishes, knowing He goes there with us. We are healed as we let Him teach us to heal. All right. Yep. 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 Now I have to go and make myself a co-host so as I can share. Isn't that crazy? I'm just,
Ah, the dreams of duality and all the myriad paths in the labyrinth that we meander through. But it's all
it
for a
is
good, all for a
just
good
really,
cause.
really,
Yeah. While you're doing that, shall I start reading,
yeah.
or do you want to make sure everything's recorded first?
All right, now I'm going to get the screen share up here. And
Okay.
yeah, we're starting lesson 9 today, right?
Letter nine. Letter nine. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Letter 9, lesson, let her have a
It's a
lesson and
lesson.
it'll be number 9. It's a lesson.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, that's there we go. Okay, go ahead and start reading.
Okay. I have us on page 176 in Absence from Felicity, the story of Helen Schuckman and her scribing of A Course in Miracles by Kenneth Wapnick, PhD, and which Glenn and I have been reading since sometime last summer. And we're in chapter 6, letter 9, which is about 34% of the way through the book, page 159 and 492 in the digital version, 176 in the print version. And letter 9 begins with Ken's comments, which um, are the final letter is dated Sunday, 11 a.m. The mention of Virginia Beach in the second paragraph is another reference point for dating these letters in the summer of 1965, as Helen and Bill went to see Hugh Lynn Casey in September of that year. Among other things, Helen here gives Bill some sage advice concerning meditation, basically instructing him on the difference between form and content. As has already been seen in some of the previous letters, Bill was continually urging Helen to meditate. We also find here another reference to the importance for Helen of letting Bill make certain decisions for her. And Helen's ninth letter begins, Dear Bill, this is the right time to do this. I have been waiting until it was. I was going to do it yesterday evening. We got home around 11 p.m. and I turned on the Gene Shepherd show, which I like. And I would have done it then, but I decided I am very nice and I'm entitled to hear something I enjoy. In fact, sacrifice as such doesn't mean anything and does not purify. It it can even be a sin. The whole topic here is sin anyway. Which funny. This starts off with an admonition for you. You are still in charge of this venture in brackets of finding another way on bracket, in another way in quotes, and will probably remain so for some time. The whole Virginia Beach idea is entirely in your hands, and I do not think I will bring it up myself, although I'm not sure. Either way, all timing in this matter is up to you. Anyway, I think you are wrong about when and where you can meditate. The answer is anywhere and anytime. And then she says, sin is a lack of perspective and proportion. And Ken has a footnote for that sentence, number 41. He says, A Course in Miracles would later teach that the, quote, lack of perspective, unquote, lies in viewing sin as deserving punishment as the ego would have us believe, rather than as a mistake to be corrected by the Holy Spirit. And that is such an important distinction. I think that's at the heart of and the foundation of the Course's teachings, isn't it? So and then Helen continues, I've been guilty of being too unaware of externals, but you have been guilty of being too dependent on them. Please try to get used to the idea that when you feel it's a good time to meditate, it is. It doesn't really depend on being in a familiar place. In parentheses, that's just a thing with you, and being quiet can happen anywhere. It's not the outside noise that counts. Quick aside, since they lived and worked in downtown in New York City, it's like that certainly was helpful because they're not likely to find a quiet wilderness experience anywhere in their usual routine, huh?
Yeah, and
Um,
it's interesting. I just was thinking I had to go back and look. This is 1965,
mhm.
and meditation was not a big thing in the culture at that time. I don't think I was.
It was kind of getting there. It was starting to
Yeah,
emerge from the hippie generation and that sort of thing, but I mean, it really hadn't blossomed as much as it has in subsequent decades. Yeah.
not since the Beatles. I mean, the Beatles
Yeah.
was
Yeah.
what really got meditation started in
That's
this
true. And that was
country.
more kind of more late 60s than mid 60s.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. hmm Yep. Yeah. Good,
right.
good insight. Yeah.
Anyway,
Um,
continue.
okay. Um, it's not the outside noise that counts. I think I was right in saying that I remember that my own most religious experience happened in the subway, of which I was very much afraid at the time. I think that wherever you are afraid is probably your best chance of being quiet. Wow, that's a quotable quote. It is a mistake to think that a stage setting is the play, just as I made a mistake in thinking that you don't need any setting at all. The reason why you don't always need your own setting is that sometimes meditation can actually save you from disaster. And then Ken comments here. This last statement, this last comment refers to the quote disaster unquote that might be experienced by attempting to solve a problem or deal with an emergency situation by oneself rather than with Jesus or the Holy Spirit. It is of note that this instruction on the crucial difference between form and content in the discussion of not needing externals to meditate came before the scribing of A Course in Miracles began, in which this very important teaching is emphasized. The chief characteristic of special relationships, which can be understood as the ego's most important weapon in its war against God, is the confusion of form and content. Our dependence on the ritualistic forms of prayer, how, where, when, what, mirroring our dependency in relationships, obscures the content of love that is the heart of prayer. Helen then continued. Do you want to pick up from there?
Sure, I'll pick up from there.
Okay.
So Helen then continued, and this with the letter. And wow, yes, this is pretty amazing
Mm-hmm.
that this, Ken says this is before the scribing of the course in 1965. Um, and she already had what it seemed to be pretty much the core concepts of the course already in her consciousness, um, which is pretty amazing, being as that she really resisted so much of it, and yet it was a part of her being before she ever wrote a word of the course.
Mm-hmm.
Really interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
So
It's
Helen's
as
letter
as it is.
continues.
Oh, I was just going to say, as it is true for all of us. I mean, we all intuitively, deep in our minds, even if it seems, profoundly, deeply buried, is that awareness that we never left perfect oneness, that the impossible crime of sin, guilt, and fear is just that. It's not possible except in a dream. And because we've become so identified with our dreams, we haven't even, for the most part, really just barely started, questioning the foundation of that dream, which of course is that belief in separation. And but it never happened. We're all just working on just a outrageously silly assumption and making it a serious world that is really laughable from an eternal perspective.
Yeah, it's just amazing to me. I'm just more amazed by the day of of how this came about and how this is, because you're right. I knew about this. I mean, obviously, I've been studying spirituality since I was a teenager, just as you had. And I had immersed myself in spirituality um, in the 60s. This was in the 60s. I think, let's see, I was born in 53, so I was like 12 when this letter was being written.
Hmm.
Um, but then it wasn't, I think when I was um, 14 is when I decided to leave the church. It was Catholic, decided that the church was not a good place for spirituality because I thought that the leaders of the church and the throughout time were corrupt, and so I couldn't the corruption of the church versus the spirituality of the teaching was seemed so profound to me that I thought, how can this have anything to do with Jesus? Um, but of course, that's if I hadn't have had the church, I wouldn't have had all of this desire, I guess. And Helen too. I mean, she was not a Catholic or a Protestant or anything. I guess she did get baptized in a Protestant church, but she had that profound desire for connection when she was a kid as well. So it was a spirituality that ran through her lifetime that was just now catching up in the 60s. So it's pretty amazing. We're there. So Helen's letter continues. Please bear with me now because I will try to be very accurate. Whenever I am wrong now, it will be corrected in time. I feel I should tell you that I will make some mistakes here, but I think the main ideas are true. Okay, I want to thank you for saving my eyes, which I was going to lose. This was not because of retribution. I don't think the retribution idea should be too much emphasized because it's never the main point. Um, so she's already going in the reason I shouldn't feel guilty because it's not the point. But Ken says again, Helen's excessive concern for her eyes will be discussed in a number of different contexts later on. I do not know the exact context here of Helen's remarks about Bill's quote unquote saving her eyes, but it is important to note her gratitude to Bill for this help. It is also interesting to see how Helen was moving away from the idea of punishment, which plays such a crucial role in the ego's insane thought system of sin. Which, yeah, that's pretty amazing. The theme of Helen's eyesight is continued now in the context of the following incident. We also find here further examples of Helen's desire to help others, as well as her continued attempts to be honest with Bill and herself about her own ego. Okay, and so this is Helen's letter continued. I got into that cab in a slightly mixed up mood because I thought I was supposed to meditate from 5:45 p.m. to 6 p.m. and then call you. Afterwards, I knew it didn't matter because your train from Watermill, Ken, I think put in there, would be late and you couldn't get in by 6 anyway if the departure time was right. Sam's wife held me up a little, and I really wanted to help her. She is a very nice woman and very pretty, but she has a lot of desperation about her, and she really needed some reassurance. She was pathetically grateful, which she needn't have been. I think we worked out a more restful and optimistic approach. Um, though. Then Charlotte wanted to drive to the train station with me, and she took forever. This is an exaggeration, but it almost seemed like that at the time. I do not like to have other people interfere with my plans, even though I'm beginning to get the idea that plans help, but they can't rule, and neither can I.
But if we could only
Wow.
get that one down, huh?
I I just got off a
Well, my
call with
plans,
people who were, go ahead.
I was going to say, my plans are not going to save me, nor can anything else on my own do the trick, right? Basically, that's what I got from what she just said there. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, but that she had this understanding as well. I mean,
Uh-huh.
this is a crazy, this is something that people who are studying the course for years have still not figured out that, the healed mind doesn't plan and that my plans don't really have a meaning, um, that they help, but they can't rule. Um, but this is before she even started scribing the course, that she had all of this insight into reality. So, really, yeah.
Hmm.
So she's just explaining how come her plan to meditate from 5:45 to 6 was foiled, but that she knew it didn't matter. Or afterwards, I knew it didn't matter because your train was late and you wouldn't have been there anyway.
Hmm.
And all the things that led up to this, nothing stopped anything from working the way that it was supposed to work. All the interruptions, she had to stop and help Sam's wife. She had to stop and help Charlotte. She had to stop in the midst of her plan for, whatever, picking up Bill or whatever, but all of those things that interfered didn't interfere with the actuality. They just interfered in her mind with the plan. And I can imagine that as she was helping Sam's wife, she was thinking, I really need to get out of here. When she was helping Charlotte, she was like, I really need to get moving. She's taking too long. What's going on?
Hmm.
I'm in that same situation so much of the time where I'm ready and other people are just lollygagging around. And I'm sitting here going, what is wrong with you? We need to be there by 7 and it's 20 till, and you haven't even got dressed yet. That's me. I'm spending half my days doing that. But, what's the point? And that's what Helen's saying. What's the
Hmm.
point of all these plans? Because they don't rule, and I don't rule either. I'm not in charge. Holy Spirit, be you in charge.
Hmm.
Wow, pretty cool. So I'll continue with Helen's letter. The cab, which we did not get immediately, took forever. Not really, she says. When we got held up in traffic, I briefly got kind of wild. Then it occurred to me that you can't set the time and place for meditating always. And I was late because I really tried to help Gail, who's Sam's wife, and waiting for Charlotte had been a nice thing too. So doing nice things is the best preparation for meditation. And since it was almost 6, I thought, why not here? I am very glad I did. So this must be when she was in the cab, I'm expecting. So she says, I shut off the noise, though I still heard it, and I thought about the things you told me about too, about mine eyes have seen the glory and all the rest, and I began to feel better. Although the pain did not leave my eyes, I thought maybe I'd finish it when I got home, but kept thinking, why wait? So I kept coming back to it. When we got out of the traffic snarl and onto the driveway, which in brackets, the FDR drive that wraps around the eastern border of Manhattan, end of brackets, I closed my eyes and thought a lot. Please listen, Bill. The next part is as important for you as for me. This is really for both of us now. The first thing I thought was, quote, I have been blind, unquote. Then I thought of, quote, eyes have they, but they see not, end quote.
Hmm.
I thought it with a capital I, it would. And she, in print, says, I don't understand the capitalized it, but I won't correct it into prints. I thought it would be nice to see because the world God made is beautiful and part of my legitimate inheritance. It was made for me and all of us, but I have refused to see it. So I asked to be able to see it and join up with it so we could all go on together. It was a nice feeling and one I really enjoyed.
Hmm.
Holy cow. I mean, what a little revelation she goes through in this cab ride,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
It's not it, it, this is this seems so natural
Hmm.
for
Yeah, because I think
her.
when we hear her writing, it's like, well, any of us could have said something that is similar in content, though not necessarily in form. It's like, well, we I think we all intuitively again know that what was created by our creator is perfect, is beautiful, is lovely. And even if we don't recognize that there's a longing for it, and a lot of times the only default that seems to be available is religion, and like you were talking about, when that takes you only so far, and then you realize there's inconsistencies, and then later on hopefully realize that all the inconsistencies weren't out there, they were in my mind, my projections that appeared to make the the problem outside, but it was really just my lack of peace was not attributable to anything outside. It was just a choice I made inside. And Helen's essentially basically saying the same thing. I've been blind. I have eyes, but they see not. I'm so focused on externals and projecting the unconscious, unfounded guilt onto the world that prevents me from seeing the real loveliness, the real beauty, the real unalterable peace that lies behind every particular form that I seem to be experiencing.
Yeah, it really is pretty insane when you uh, when you think about how we already know. I mean, she knew that it was the best thing to help people,
Hmm.
no matter what her other obligations were. She knew that helping people wasn't going to slow her down or stop it. That it would be, but the world, when she says the world God made is beautiful, which really kind of goes along with what Joel Goldsmith says. Joel Goldsmith doesn't teach us to hate the world. And a lot of Course in Miracles students think that Jesus is trying to teach us to hate the world. But Jesus is not teaching us to hate the world. Jesus is teaching us to see the world as it really is. And so when we see the world as it really is, we see that God is in every part of it, and
Hmm.
it is our legitimate inheritance. Um, that the world itself, the physical, and the actions and activities and whatever are not our reality, but they're a symbol of something to us. And that if we saw it as it truly is, we would see that it's all made of love. Even the world that we think was an attack on God is really love. And God just loving us so much that he said, go right on ahead, make a world, do what you want, but you can't hurt yourself. And I will never let you be harmed. So what a beautiful, beautiful um, gift this is, even from before she started scribing the course. Again, I'm just amazed.
Yeah, kind of like Ken, who had it figured out all along, and Helen obviously did too. And then again, like bringing it back home, it's like for each of us, it's like we all, on some level, no matter how deeply seemingly buried, it's we all know all this stuff. I had a teacher named Floyd Edwards when I started getting into metaphysics in the late 60s and early 70s. And one of the things that really appealed to me about his teachings is he started off every class that with you can't teach anyone anything they don't already know. And I thought, well, yeah, that's true. It's got to be true. And anyone who claims to know something that no one else has access to is like, well, I don't know about this stuff. You know, I mean, well,
Yeah,
keep looking,
yeah.
keep looking.
So it's not just that I have this. I have to trust that everyone else has it too.
Exactly, exactly. Yeah, yeah. If
Yeah,
we're all in the same boat, you know. It's sort of like when people ask me about sacred geometry, I say, well, either, you know, you pick any subject after the word sacred, and it's all sacred or nothing sacred. And it depends on the thought system, you know. Are we looking at any particular thing with ego or Holy Spirit? And then that's going to color our experience of that. Yeah. We're going to see the light or the darkness and everything, depending on that one binary choice in our mind.
that's it. Yeah, that's it. And then that's that's why this is a course in non-duality. Excuse me, because there is only the one way of being. It just seems like there's two. Just it seems in our eyes like there's something else happening here, but the reality of it is it's only God and God's will in everything.
Hmm.
God's will in everything. So so oh, you want to read on?
Sure, sure.
Okay.
So Ken continues. A Course in Miracles, of course, teaches that God did not create the physical universe, but did create a world of spirit, heaven, which consists of Christ and himself. And that insight, I managed to read the entire course, you know, all three volumes at the time. You know, when I first picked it up in the mid 80s, I think it was before I'm not sure if the supplements were out then or not. But anyway, I read the three volumes, and somehow I maybe at some level grasped that idea, but it really didn't stick until I read Gary Renard's first book in 2007, Do You? And it was like, you know, Art and Persa emphasized that, you know, that God has nothing to do with the material world of space and time and everything from quarks to quasars, as I like to say. You know, the whole matter, energy, anything that can change can't have anything to do with perfect oneness. Our creator would not be a true creator if it created something that's untrue. Untrue meaning something that's subject to change and decay and destruction. And it's like, well, that that sort of disqualifies anything from the realm of truth if it can change, right? So anyway, but that is such a relief, because that means that if our real identity isn't in and with the physical universe, then there's true hope, and the true hope is not only merits hope, but complete trust, because at some point we will awaken from the dream we made and realize that the truth has been just waiting there patiently for us all along, and that is our inheritance, as you were saying earlier, Lynn. So yeah, that's a good thing.
Oh, I'm sitting over here saying, "Yep, absolutely," and I'm muted. So you don't know I'm responding to you, but yes.
Okay, okay, I'll go on then. Okay, so the reflection of their unity and love within the dream that is this world is referred to in the Course as the aforementioned real world, the split mind state of total innocence that reflects the reality of heaven. This would be the world that Helen, even without the benefit of Jesus' specific teachings in the Course, was referring to. Obviously, since she was talking about that before she began scribing. As we see expression of Helen's joy in the idea that by joining with what was originally perceived to be outside her mind, see lesson 30 in the workbook for an exercise that exactly expresses this experience, we are all able to return to God together. Wow. You know, I'm remembering how much Ken put in this book that I probably glossed over or glazed over in the first reading. And I mean, there's such wonderful insights about the course in this. And so I'm so glad again, Lynn, that you suggested that we read this together, because it's like I'm getting so much more out of it the second time.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. And of course, the first time I read it too, I was pretty new to the course. I'd probably been studying the course for a couple of years. Of course, I had read Gary Renard's books, which really pointed me in just quite straight line direction. But You know, I read this book and it just it didn't hit me the way it's hitting me now, that's for sure. So
Yeah,
you were
yeah.
right, right there.
Okay, I'll continue on with Helen's commentary. Just another short paragraph before. Oh, let's see. No, this is, yeah, Ken's commentary before Helen resumes. The letter continues with Helen's cab journey home. The cab developed some engine trouble not far from Helen's apartment, and so Helen got out and hailed another one. We pick up the story here with Helen still very concerned about her eyesight. Bill, dear, there would have been an accident if I had not suddenly wanted to see, and then brackets, why this is so is not clear from Helen's letter, and close bracket. I would have been blinded, but it would not have been out of retribution. It would have been merely because if I were blind, the thing I would have wanted most would have been sight, which I have bitterly neglected. It has been a sin. And I think she's referring to that in the pre-course jargon um, context there. And, and later she might have corrected that to a mistake or a correctable mistake. It's time to catch up on something that came before because it fits in here. When we were in your office and you were trying to help me with this strain on my eyes, I thought briefly about blindness and breast cancer. And I thought, would I be willing to have them if it was better that way? In parentheses, I don't think smoking will hurt my eyes anymore. Close parentheses. That subject came up in a discussion earlier this week about, all the things that we think are, you know, good for our health or bad for our health. And from the course's context, anything that makes the body real is just like, ego's favorite delicacy, right? I'm paraphrasing what our conversation would, but it's like, if it makes the body real, makes the world real, the ego says, just stay mindless, stay out of that mind stuff, because that's where I'm really threatened, right?
Yeah. And it's so funny because thinking back in even in the middle of 60s, which whenever I go to my doctor, it always cracks me up. She has these framed ads on her wall about how the doctor says smoking camels is the best for you, and
Right.
smoking
Sure.
is good for your this is what people thought that
Right, right.
smoking cigarettes was a healthy thing to do. So uh
Of course, now to go past the level confusion possibilities, if if there was a an anti-course uh, poster, it would say something like, "We all know that the best thing for your health is projecting unconscious guilt onto the world. Pick,
yes, yes, yes.
fire up your blame thrower today with the whoever crosses your path or crosses your mind, right?"
Fire up your flamethrower. I love it. Oh my gosh. All right.
Shall I go on?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, I think now I'm at the, then I thought briefly that I would be willing if it was necessary because it was really kind. I felt better after that. But I think that being willing can be a real substitute for disaster if you don't do it anymore. I have not cleared up the breast cancer yet, but I don't think I will get it. Somehow I seem to have escaped that too, and I thank you, but I'm not clear yet how. It has something to do with misusing the body and being proud about the same thing. Well, there we go. There's, more ego strategies, right? As long as I really wanted to see, I don't have to be blinded. When I thought of being blind and also being willing, it occurred to me that the next time, in brackets, i.e., the next lifetime, see below Jesus' comment to Helen on uh, well, in this it says pages 500F. On yours it says does it say there? Well, anyway, um, my vision uh, will be perfect and I will be able to use it properly. Maybe now it will be, maybe now it will get better this time. So do you want to pick up
Yeah.
from there?
it just is interesting because I went through the same thing when I lost my right eye, the vision in my right eye,
Uh-huh.
several years ago, and I fully thought that that was not going to happen. And I honestly thought that, above all else, I want to see, the whole, all those vision things. And, I thought, well, this is going to fix this. And, these doctors with their ideas about my retina, they don't even know. And, Jesus is going to give me back my vision. I had all kinds of crazy ideas in my mind. And,
Hmm.
of course, it was because I was misunderstanding what vision actually was.
Hmm.
So, um, when she's saying that uh, uh, in the next lifetime, her vision is going to be better.
Yeah. And
I
as you're
thought,
saying, oh, go ahead.
oh, go ahead.
Oh,
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, I was thinking about vision in the context of, the pure abstract being that is above the line in Ken's chart, which would be referred to heaven, pure non-duality, perfect oneness, capital L love, all that kind of stuff, um, which is really beyond the scope of the course, but ultimately what the course places us on the threshold of that awareness, where it says, God takes the final step metaphorically. But vision, we're so used to thinking, in bodily terms with optical, you know, visual metaphors that relate to how we perceive the world as bodies, or really project it actually, and it's just because it's all going on in our mind. But if our mind is being used for the true vision that the course talks about, it's really the metaphor, what we think of as metaphoric light, but the course really turns everything around and suggests that the the photons that impinge upon our retinas, and the light that we interpret as images and specific things in a specific world, is it suggests that that's really the metaphor. That's an image that we make up, that is, because it's not eternal, it's not true, and it obscures the real light, which is not metaphoric. Which even saying that just sounds funny, because we're so used to thinking of perfection as a metaphor, and our real identity is purely abstract, and we think, well, that's we think that that's not real because we're so used to thinking that this world is real, that the course is a slow but sure process of turning around our our complete reversal, reversing the reversal, or denying the denial of truth, right? So.
Yeah. So yeah, it really is uh shifting our understanding of what we are. Uh
Hmm.
and that I am not a body. I am free. I was saying that backwards the other day. I am still as God created me. I am free. I am not a body. And I even like that better, although Jesus put in his way for a reason. But to remind myself first, I am as God created me.
Hmm.
I am free. I am not a body. Really shifts things in my mind. Um, and as for my vision, uh, who knows? Because Jesus tells us the eyes don't even see.
Hmm.
You have eyes that don't see,
Ears don't hear,
and
brains
or
don't think, right? Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So whatever would make me think that my eye itself would have to be replaced or put back in service.
Right, right.
In reality, if I could just see truth, I wouldn't need the eyes of the body or of anything of the world, because I would be in reality, which is not as this world is.
Yeah, yeah.
uh,
And
so
of
uh,
course there's nothing that suggests that we shouldn't take advantage of whatever modern medicine has to offer and do what the course would refer to as magic is because it's completely neutral. If the world is completely neutral, therefore our bodies are completely neutral, then what we do or don't do in the world, including making use of medicine or not making use of medicine, of both conventional, alternative, and anything in any other category we can imagine, it's completely irrelevant. But what is relevant from the course's perspective is always and only about the mind and what we do with our minds. So that's why the course makes this outlandish statement, at least in terms of everyone's ego, is eyes don't see, ears don't hear, brains don't think. you know Might as well have said legs don't walk. It's like, but it's like nothing's happening in an idle world that is made of dream stuff. And that's just so challenging for all of us to remember. So we need to really be gentle and patient with ourselves when we are confronted with the craziness of the world, and how do I deal with bodily issues, and why not use the magic that's available. I'm glad I got cataract surgery a couple summers ago, and I was grateful that technology was pretty much a simple procedure compared to a few decades ago. And it's like, oh, that's nice. but but at the same time, it's like I try to remind myself, and sometimes I'll even though I have much better physical vision, I'll oftentimes walk around without my glasses that would fine tune it a little, and remind myself that when I'm seeing something blurry, it's because there really isn't anything to focus on here. you know, that, I
Nothing
mean,
to see here.
nothing to see here. Move along. Not the dreads you're
Move
looking for.
along.
But why not do what we find helpful and takes us away from fear, right? But at the same time, just remember, it's like our bodies can't be our real identity, no matter what seems to be going on with them or not going on with them. It's like, how could that make a difference in truth when our the spirit we all share is where we're all headed back to, dreaming that we left. Yeah, right.
Yeah. And Ken had really thick glasses. And then he went and got the RK surgery uh that gave him back pretty much 20/20 vision, I guess. And there
Uh-huh.
were people who thought that he had miraculously been healed because he wasn't wearing his glasses. They're still thinking that something occurred that Ken now can see.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
he went and had surgery. That there's nothing. I mean, it is miraculous, I guess, when you think about it. But it's not that kind of miraculous.
Right. The only miracle that the course would suggest is legitimate is the miracle of changing your mind about our identity from guilty to innocent, and including everyone in that change, right? Yeah. I mean, and so
Exactly,
so many ways of
absolutely.
expressing that, of course, but I mean, that's it. It's like if I can just remember that no one has committed the crime of separation, including myself, um, then everyone's off the hook. And peace not only is possible, but inevitable. And then that makes the entire material universe irrelevant, which it is in truth. So even though I don't
Yes, and
quite fully appreciate that yet, I'm getting there. And I think we're all getting there.
we're all getting there. And
Yeah.
and 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 to recognizing that physical blindness is not a problem.
Yes.
Sickness.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. How could
COVID
it be?
is not a problem. None
Yeah.
of these things are actually the problem, although we would say, and they're going to be talking about sickness here. So many people think that sickness of the body is is something that is real and relevant and has meaning, and that if, the healed mind doesn't suffer, people will say. When you're sick, and A Course in Miracles, people will say to you, that all kinds of crazy shit. Excuse my language, but Course in Miracles people will say the silliest things to you about sickness when Jesus is clearly not talking about the body
Yeah. Yeah.
when
And
he's
and
talking
that's
about.
something I think we come to as we deepen our appreciation and study. And so at first, when you first pick up the book, I remember in the mid 80s when I first picked up the course, I thought, wow, I could use a miracle. And I was, for the most part, thinking in terms of physical miracles. And then when I got into it, I was realizing, wow, I was actually, sort of like Gary Renard's teacher say, it's sort of a bait and switch thing where it's like, okay, well, I was initially drawn to the idea of having something miraculous on the level of form, but then I realized, what really makes a difference is the miraculous change in my mind. That's the big deal, the real miracle. So I just need to notice when I want to make a big deal out of the form, and just gently, non-derisively laugh at that idea as being a possible solution for a seeming lack of peace in my mind.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And of course, we've all been there. So I think we got time to read this last couple of paragraphs on
Yeah,
this page,
yeah, uh-huh.
and then you'll be going off to bigger and better things. Oh no,
Well, actually, it's just a transition to more of the same, but a different,
that's
slightly different
right.
form.
Nothing bigger, nothing better. It's all the same.
Hmm.
So I'll go ahead and read
Okay.
then. Okay. In A Course in Miracles, sickness is understood, among other things, as being a decision the mind makes to atone for our sins against God. He is conceived by the ego as bloodthirsty in his need for vengeance, and so our suffering seeks to assuage his wrath by our taking the punishment into our own hands. And here he quotes from chapter 5, section 5. Illness is a form of magic. It might be better to say that it is a form of magical solution. The ego believes that by punishing itself, it will mitigate the punishment of God. Excuse me. And this, people have always asked, where does somebody get the idea that the ego thinks that punishing itself is going to keep God from punishing us? Well, he says it right here, that if we punish ourselves, then, God will get the jump on God. He won't have a chance to punish us, or he'll be so sad that we hurt ourselves so bad that he'll want to give us good things or whatever. Uh, but this is a core belief that we have that is so embedded in our mind, in the mind of our culture,
Hmm.
that this is one of the things that needs to be just drilled out, dug out, removed from our thinking.
Yeah.
The idea that, if I hurt myself first, then God won't want to punish me so much. God won't be so mad at me if he sees how sad I am. God won't hurt me because he'll see I'm already in pain. These are
Mhm.
these are the silly things the ego thinks. Um, and this is like I said, this is a core belief that we have that really has to be just drilled out, dug out, removed,
Yep. Yep.
because it ruins everything.
It does. And I'm going to remove myself from the conversation,
All right.
seemingly, but it will continue in virtual space. And anyway, thank you, Lynn. Have a wonderful new year. Always enjoy our conversations and look forward to the next one. So
All right. Very good.
happy
I'm
New Year
marking
to
my
all.
place. Happy New Year to you too, my friend, and
Happy New
give,
Year. Happy New Year.
give all those
Thanks.
folks our love.
Will
Thanks,
do.
Ruth. Happy New
Th-
Year.
Thank you
Thank
all.
you.
Bye for now.
Bye for now, sweetie. All right. Well, that was all very nice and fun. Let's see. Let's get a little song. I'll play a song while we do our transition. If I can find my playlist. If you come to our YouTube channel, you will see that there are some really beautiful playlists that have been made for us by uh, Oddsy. She did a great job. Uh, but this is a playlist I made. Let me see if I can find it. And we're going to listen to Reverend Yolanda.
Oh, my heart today. The hush of heaven holds my heart today. Today. Do all things fall into place? This is the day I understand I am free. I am free. There is no need for me to do anything. Peace is here, my heart and mind at rest. Your love is heaven, and your love is mine today.